Mr. Anderson.
Wow, it's going on twice in one day. Holy crap.
Oh, don't you feel special now? Dude, I got a statement to make tonight, man. And it goes something like this. When the question is asked, are we making money from this? My answer at this moment now is going to be, yeah, we're making money off of it. I really don't think that hiding behind it is going to be a good thing. It means like there's something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing.
Well,
nothing.
When you say we, you mean us personally?
Yes.
Or do you mean we?
Wrong with what we're doing.
Well, right.
I mean,
and the only reason why we're doing it is because part of the money we make goes to the coffee party.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct.
That's why we're doing it.
My other point is other nonprofits actually pay their directors money to do the things that they do, and we do this without having any pay. The bylaws have something in them, and I'm a believer at this point that we need to either amend it or just work around and making sure that legally we're able to do the things we need to do by the bylaws. But in truth, if this is the case, then what the directors can't get involved in at any point in this paradigm, when everybody else that we bring in, that those people then get the benefits of being able to do this work, and they get paid to do so, and because we're the directors, we're not. What's the problem there? If anything, it solidifies our involvement.
It sounds to me like you've had objections today.
No, I haven't. I'm looking at this and thinking about it from Jeanene's perspective when she was wondering about it yesterday, and I've been kind of on point thinking, oh, well, we have to be considerate of our ethics and how this is perceived and how we really should be approaching this, and then I started really thinking about it. I said, wait, no, what we're doing here is right. The fact that we're actually putting in our time for free to ensure that this is what's going on, and that I'm fundraising through this method. The reason it's in the bylaws is that so that somebody doesn't come in and say, I'm going to be a director and I'm going to bring my company to supply all the paper for this company, and nobody else is going to have the ability to sell to it, and it's just going to be me, so I'm going to be taking in the money, and it's going to be a sham. That's not what's going on here. We're not shamming anything. We're bringing in money so that we can fundraise and advertise all at the same time. And if the work that we're doing is like a commission-oriented thing, which is kind of how this works, and we get paid based upon the leadership that we bring, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, that we're going to get paid for the work that we do. And that's the right answer. At least this is the way I see it. But I don't think that there's any issues with it. What are your thoughts?
I concur fully.
Cool.
And if anybody has any ethical issues, feel free to donate all of the profits they make back to the coffee party.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly. It motivates everybody. The biggest motivator in this world is a financial gain, no matter what. And if you're able to give a financial gain to people where you get paid for the volume you create, regardless of if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit or, selling things out of the back of your car, people will be motivated more to do something about it. And if you can clean up the earth, make money for your nonprofit at the same time that you're making money and incentivizing others to do the same and helping them, there's nothing negative with that. Oh, what's up, Bill?
Hey there, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
All righty. All right, how is everybody?
Busy. Busier than a bee in the spring, man. Wow. So there's some stuff that we got to talk about tonight. I've been trying to get your number for the last week, though. I've needed to call you.
My number?
Yeah, I don't know why I don't have it. I look in all of my emails.
Well, let me give it to you.
All right, hold on a second.
Okay.
I'll tell you. Hold on. Doe and. That's always.
Doe and.
Yep. What is your number?
217.
217.
552.
552.
7834.
7834. Done. All right, good. Yeah, there's some stuff that I have to talk to you about offline.
Okay, cool. Call me almost any time you like.
Well, I'm not going to call you middle of the night, but...
Well, yeah, I won't answer.
I have to have a free... well, I'm up usually in the middle of the night anyway because my son gets up, but yeah, there's certain avenues of approach that I have to discuss with you for what we're doing in Viridian. Because you're within a state that is in Viridian, it makes it kind of important for me to kind of start discussing it with you.
Okay.
All right, cool. There's a few things that we'll go over tonight, though. And I'm going to let Jeanene kind of take the lead on the discussion points. You can still, Del, have you checked the Google Doc that we've been working on lately?
Which one is that?
The one that is for the Coffee Party Viridian Strategy Doc.
Well, is this the one that we were working with earlier?
Absolutely. Actually, everything was in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've looked at it lately, but it's linked. It's in the agenda, right? It's linked in the agenda.
It should be in the agenda. Yeah, I haven't actually edited the agenda this evening about what I'm going to talk about. And there is Jeanene. Good evening.
Eric and I have been trying to get in, so he's almost here. As a matter of fact, he's going to call you and see if you can three-way him in.
I can three-way him in. It's not a problem.
Excellent. Well, he's calling you any second.
Always. All right, not a problem. Yeah, he's just texted me. Call him now.
Excellent.
He, for some reason, he didn't pick up. So he's probably calling me now, hoping that he can get me. Hold on, let me try this one more time.
Okay.
All right, let's try this again. Yeah, his phone is jacked up, it seems.
It's what?
It just goes to voicemail.
Yeah, he's having mega challenges here.
Well, he's in North Carolina. There's tons of challenges.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll just pour myself a glass of wine.
Oh, yeah. Yay.
So how is everybody?
Oh, well, just hunky-dory. We're fine here a bit.
Aren't you freezing to death? Isn't it cold where you are, Dale?
Oh, wow, we were down to 13 below for like one entire day. The temperature didn't change. So I think it got up into the 20s today. It felt balmy. But yeah,
I was watching GN last night, and I saw Tom Skilling, and he said that it had been 36 hours before the Chicago area had been above zero.
Yeah, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, and there was all the snow, of course, down here, and
That's
you know,
the
it's
reason
like
why.
going outside to shovel snow in that kind of weather was contraindicated.
Boy,
Hence
you're
the reason
some kind of hero, because I wouldn't do it.
Well, you know, I actually waited till it went up to 9 degrees, and, you know, but I don't know. We just did some things, so we had the cars at the end of the driveway. And, you know,
Right,
we
right.
only had a few feet to shovel, and we still haven't shoveled out the whole driveway.
There he is. Eric is able. He's now on.
I had a video. Oh, hey.
So for the last 11 minutes, I've been trying to get an email to open.
Country living. Country living.
Way in North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, when the wind blows in from Maui, we don't even get TV reception, you know? But you can smell the cattle.
Oh, wow. Hey, we really can hear.
Well, do we have, I guess there's 4 people on?
5.
There's Bill, Eric, Dan, Jeanene, and Cam.
Okay, cool.
Does anybody know Egberto's status?
I tried to call Justin earlier today. I didn't have too much luck, although I know he's in some really heavy classwork currently.
Well, yeah, one of the things I put on the agenda is that Justin cannot make Wednesday nights from now until, you know, the end of March, because he's taking a Wednesday evening class that starts right at 5 o'clock, or, you know, this time, 5 o'clock my time, or he's in class at this time. And so one of the things I put onto the agenda was to ask the question, should we consider a different night so that Justin can come? And I set up to send him the recording tomorrow, and said if he wanted to make comments in the agenda, they'd be welcome. But, you know, he can't make it. And as a matter of fact, I had a video conference with him Monday, and he couldn't go to work because it was so unsafe outside. And inside of his inside of his apartment, he was wearing a beanie and gloves and a jacket. So he looked like he was, you know, normally what you might normally wear outside, he was wearing at his computer, because, you know, you just can't heat your apartment warm enough.
Wow.
Yeah, it had been like 30, 40, 50 below that night. It was just crazy making.
Is he live in some kind of old brownstone?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Does he live like in an old brownstone that's like steam heated, and those things have zero insulation?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know where. I know he recently moved. I don't know where he lives right now, but he was definitely. I didn't see any cold. I didn't see his breath, so it wasn't that bad in there. But yeah, the old buildings have a hard time, because once the actual building materials become cold, you're just sending heat into the brick and mortar, you know, and it really is a big challenge. That's why they're so worried for people that live in old homes, because not everybody's got Arctic gear, you know, and that's pretty much what you need in conditions like this. So I really feel for everybody, you know. You know, what we say here is stay warm and keep your powder dry.
Right.
Hey.
Well, I would be open to moving the meeting to another night. I mean, I've got some availability on other nights.
It would actually benefit me greatly, Jeanene, only because on the 21st I start my international business classes, and it's probably a good thing to move it, because otherwise I'm going to miss the first hour at minimum of board calls when we have them, and I don't think that's a good thing.
No, I don't think so either. So should we just start? Should we check in, or should we start with this agenda item?
check in. I think that's a good thing. I haven't heard anybody what you all are up to.
Hey, let's start with Dell. Let's start with Dell.
Oh, well, glad to be here. Of course, thawing out and all of that. It was a really busy end of the year for me, and I am with a new agency now. And, I follow the policies. At any rate, so I'm starting with a whole new group of people, and that's kind of interesting. But at any rate, I'm glad to be here and hope everybody has a happy New Year.
Thanks, you too. Hey, Dan, how about you?
I wish I was still in Tampa. And not that I'm not that we're suffering here in Portland from Chicago-like conditions, but still, it was a nice break to just chill out and do nothing. So I came back, rested, recovered, and ready to go. So let's do this.
Excellent, thanks. Cameron, how about you?
I'm fabulous. Life's good here. I'm just really, really busy. In the end of February, I'm going down to go see Anthony Robbins speak in Fort Lauderdale, so I look forward to the Florida weather in the middle of February, too, although I'm not going to see a lot of it. I'm quite excited for everything that we got going on. Lots of stuff to talk about this evening, and definitely look forward to this call.
You make it sound like it's the exception and not the rule, Cameron.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be quiet because my son's sleeping and the house kind of reverberates.
Oh, no worries. That's all good. So I'm going to check in from the foothills of the Oregon Coast Range. It's now returned to normal and rain. We had our cold, as Dan can tell you, like a month ago, and it was just spooky, scary cold. But so I'm good. I'm ready. It took an inordinate amount of time to get ready for tonight's meeting, and but I hope the prep was worth it and we can get through this stuff fast. So thanks, everybody. I actually miss you like crazy. I don't think I've heard your voices for a month, and I'm really happy to be here with you all tonight. So thanks. And Eric, you're last.
I am in Belhaven, North Carolina. It's on the coast. It's cold here, too. Been filming an interesting story about the closing of a hospital. North Carolina is one of the states that refused Medicaid expansion, and meanwhile they've got these vulture hospital conglomerates that buy up the hospitals in a whole region and create monopolies, and then apparently what they've done is they're closing it's like Walmart, right? But they're forcing the closure of other hospitals so that people will have to travel to the other one that they own. And so they have half the overhead and twice the customers. That's their idea. But what they fail to realize is what that does to people who, depend on having a hospital to survive, somewhere in their area. And now they have to travel 100 miles to go to a hospital. And it's also really devastating economically for this town, Belhaven. So we're in the middle of this struggle to save the hospital, and NAACP has filed basically the beginnings of a lawsuit, and it's cool in one sense because people are coming together across party and racial lines. So that's what we're doing. We're just filming way too much as usual.
But it's important. So I really appreciate everything you're doing there. Okay, so Eric, you put an agenda into the doc. And by the way, can I get a mic check? I'm on my speakerphone and my headset broke and I can't. Anyway, do I sound okay? Do I need to check my volume?
Marvelous. You sound marvelous.
Yes.
Thanks.
Sound good.
So listen, why don't I kick it off since you put financial report first, and mine's at this point pretty cut and dried. You can connect, if you had a computer that worked, Eric, you can connect to the fake book to see more of the detail. But the summary here is that right now we have two things that we actually made, we got $1,500 on hand, and it's all spoken for because our accounts payable is almost twice that. But our debt is reduced because we're making regular debt service payments. As a matter of fact, this is the last payment to Blue State Digital, and now we get to start paying back human beings. So that's all good. The things that happened that were sort of out of ordinary were that we hadn't counted on paying social help online. We thought that somehow our Viridian arrangement would handle that, and because it's taking as long as it's taking to launch, they want $500 a month, which is half of what their quote was. I gave them $500 last month. They expect $500 this month, and that's going to be dodgy. The other thing that makes our accounts payable high is that this is the month that we pay for our directors and officers insurance. And it came in only $34 more than last year, so it's still at $17.34. But, it's a chunk of change, and I've sort of been warning us that this is going to be coming. The rabbit is coming through the snake, and here it is. So I'm just being optimistic here. The good news is I can put anything we have now on the credit card that I secured. I don't like paying interest, but if we had to, we could stay in good standing and manage that. So that's all good. Based on, does anybody have any other questions of me?
I guess social help online is being paid for the time they spend on conference calls with us?
No.
No, they're being paid for their planning, and so they just sent us a planning document. And I can look and see if you were contacted, Eric. If you didn't receive it, I'll send it to you. And Tam, you probably know more about this.
I already did. I already sent it to both you and Eric, and just for review.
Okay.
Okay.
I was surprised, but this is, it's what happened. So, any other questions?
Not from me.
Okay. So then the next thing on the agenda is new board members, number, priority, invitation process. And so I went back through the older parts of the doc, and I brought forward the names of everyone that had been recommended by board members so far. And that's Tiffany Espinoza, Bernadette. How do you say Bernadette's last name? Evangelista.
Is it Evangelista?
So literally how it looks, huh? With the name like Bernadette, I assumed it had to be, fancy.
Right.
Anyway, Bobby Rodrigo and Debilyn Molineaux and Vince Lamb. And so that's 5 nominees. And what I did down below, just to sort of get the ball rolling on a conversation, and Greg.
Yeah.
Let's see. Greg. Anyway, so down below I put, I mentioned the fact that we have no membership positions because in our current configuration there was staff that did membership when the bylaws were written. We have no public relations position, in our existing structure. And I'm sure that's because Annabelle and Eric basically were the de facto public relations people. Secretary is vacant. Strategy and organizational development are vacant. That's John and Michael. And then what I threw in, just for discussion, is that being a managing director is like a job unto itself. And because I'm also treasurer, my treasurer job, I feel like comes first. And so it's, I try to do them both. But anyway, if we had enough people, it might be smart to have managing director actually be a position as opposed to a position plus. And so with that, how about I open this up and let's see, I should look at the board if I'm going to, is anybody, so Cameron, you have your hand up?
I had my hand up at the very beginning saying only because I wanted, the time frame of, I'll put myself down, but the time frame for the change of the board call is what I had that up from.
Oh, we were going to go straight to that, too. Okay, so what's your pleasure, you guys? Do you want to talk about changing the date first, or do you want to talk about new members?
Oof.
Changing the date might be faster.
Let's get the easy thing out of the way and just try and find a new time.
Okay, does anybody have suggestions or considerations on when the time should be?
Well, do any of us have meetings on other nights? I mean, we know that some of the radio shows are going to conflict, right, with preparation for your show, if you get a night show or whatever. I have a P2C meeting on Tuesday evenings every other Tuesday now. So, but we can work around. If we decide on Tuesdays, we'll just work around this schedule.
Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays are my best days. I think Mondays and Wednesdays are my bad ones. This is Cameron, by the way. Let me look at my calendar.
Well, Dan has a radio show Monday.
Right.
Sounds like Friday's looking sweeter.
Friday, I think not.
That's all good.
So,
and I would not necessarily mind doing weekends, but if we did, I'd rather do them early.
Yeah, me too. Tuesdays and Thursdays are fairly open for me. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays.
Okay, Egberto's got a radio show on Saturday at noon.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock here. He has shifted it to a 1-hour show from a 2-hour show.
Wow.
But, yeah, it's at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time.
Maybe we should use Doodle.
Oh, jeez. Here we go. New tool.
I was that facetious? I couldn't see your face, Eric. Were you smiling when you said that?
No, I'm serious. I thought we've used it successfully in the past, but especially since 2 people aren't here.
Well, there's some truth to that. Okay, I can send out a doodle. It's looking like the possible times right now are the every other Tuesday. If the middle ground or something like it starts again, that could be a problem, but we could deal with that when it happens. And then Sunday morning, Friday morning, the one thing about Doodle is you have to actually give realistic options. So I guess just give me a second of your time to figure out what the realistic options for the Doodle are. So Sunday morning is an option? Yes, no?
Yes.
Sunday morning's an option for me.
Okay.
Sunday afternoon.
I didn't hear you, Del.
Sunday afternoon. Sunday mornings are kind of bad for me. I'm not a church goer, but Sunday morning has a continuous.
I'm not a huge morning person. That Cam recently scheduled a meeting for 9 a.m. New Jersey time. And it's like, oh man, that's 6 a.m., buddy.
Oh wow.
I'm not doing that.
I get those all the time from work. Especially when you deal with Europe or Singapore.
That's right. Okay. So I will do that. I'll put several options on the doodle and just be looking for it, okay? Because in the past, sometimes we have a hard time getting participation. So let's do this before our next meeting so that Justin can schedule it in and we can all book it. Now that Eric booked the entire year on Maestro, we can do this again, eh, Eric?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
And by the way, I retract my earlier comment about were you kidding? I thought you said Google.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
I know you said Doodle.
Okay, apology accepted. All right, are we ready to move on to membership? All right, let's do it.
The appointing the board directors?
Right, director membership, members of the board, sorry. So the question that you raised in the agenda, Eric, I assumed it was you that put the agenda up, was new board members, number, priority, invitation process. And so all I added to that was, my sense that we could probably use more, and you guys know I've brought this up in the past, that we're, now that I've been doing this managing director thing, what I can tell you is there is no membership director, there is no public relations director, and for logical reasons. There used to be people in those slots who were not directors. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I just saw Bart Turner. Is that just added?
Yeah, I just put that up there.
Okay, that's all good. So, so Eric's question was number, priority, and invitation process. So maybe one thing we could ask to start with is if anybody approached any of these people, like if Cameron, you recommended Bernadette, have you talked to her about this as a possibility? Did you inquire?
I haven't yet. I think they have a meeting tomorrow night where Sally's speaking with somebody else and they're going to be doing that in New York. I don't have her number to call her, so I have to either go there on a Thursday or, and this week is hard.
Sure. Well, it's not necessary. It's not inappropriate to not have spoken. But if we're trying to go for a process here, we might. I just didn't know if any of these folks had been contacted. I discussed this a little bit with Debilyn, and then Dell had brought up the issue that Michael had brought up before, which was about conflict of interest. And so I've inserted the conflict of interest statement, or at least the first couple sections of the conflict of interest statement out of our bylaws into the agenda. The conflict of interest, I think, had to do with her being an employee. And since she's not an employee, it's my reading that it's not a conflict anymore. But I'm happy to, let's see, I could put the link in the doc if anyone else wants to check out.
I'm looking at this conflict of interest thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Who? Go ahead, Dale.
Talking. No, I was looking at it and I was thinking, this is an aside with Viridian. Aren't we all in violation of this?
Well, let me.
Go ahead.
No,
we might have to amend this article because I wonder. I'm just quickly reading. I read through it and I was like, well, geez, which one is it?
Well, I think you're brilliant, Dell, because I raised the same question. And Cam and I have had like 2 extensive conversations about this, and we've brought in Viridian experts about exactly this question. And my rule of thumb as a business owner was if I ask myself that question, I now have to ask my lawyer. And so I think it's not a bad idea to get an opinion about this. And obviously, there's a couple things that would come into play. One of them is exactly how we do this. Either has to comply with this, or we have to consider what's the intent of this, and is there an amendment that makes the Viridian thing work and still maintains. I mean, this is obviously an anti-cronyism kind of section. And so it's not bad that we should have to be highly vigilant in the sense of, crony participation. And it's a valid inquiry for us to ask ourselves this question.
Point of order.
Okay.
Thank you.
Point of order. This will be discussed. It's on the agenda for later. This is not the topic at hand. Can we table this until we get to that point? and talk about replacing directors, please?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
Awesome, Dan.
And I was all rules of Robert about it, too.
Yeah, I call them Bob's suggestions. Okay, so we're back to directors or nominees. If someone has a great idea how to proceed here, speak up.
My suggestion is very simple. Debilyn is a slave. She is not an employee. She is not being paid, right? And therefore, she should be like the rest of us, slaves. Put her on the board.
Servant, my good man.
Yeah, put her on the board.
Call it right.
Well, I don't think there's anything in Article 7 that would keep us from considering Debilyn.
No, I agree, and that's why I agree. And then, obviously, none of the other folks have a conflict of interest in this regard either. So everybody's cleared that hurdle. We have more nominees than we have positions.
Good. Let's find work for them to do.
Well, if I could comment on two of them, because I have talked to two of them. Bobby Rodrigo right now, I don't think there's any way we're going to get him. He's so far involved in his other stuff, and he's raised, and he's raised some other issues. Conversely, Greg Russick, I approached him about it and said, "Hey, would you care to be on the board?" He was like, "Absolutely." I think I've been very clear about wanting to lend a bigger hand. So Greg Russick is in if we want him.
Excellent. Has anyone else approached anyone else?
Well, Vince Lamb actually was pursuing running for secretary. So he actually asked me if, the elections were going to happen or whatever, and, who he should contact. So I nominated him to get his name in the running because we do need a secretary, and he did function in that capacity previously. So he's already interested. He was pursuing it.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, now Bart had been recommended for a previous vacancy during the previous term of directors. And at that time we approached him and he was too busy. So someone, I don't know if that's changed, but that's the history on him. And then Bernadette and Tiffany, I have no idea about. Eric, you nominated Tiffany. Why don't you fill us in?
I just sort of casually mentioned it to her in an email right before the holidays. I would have to probably get on the phone with her and try to talk her into it,
Excellent. Did anybody besides me watch her video? Eric,
I did too.
She's
quite amazing.
Yeah, she is amazing. And her expertise is right in line with what Michael's position was. So, just saying that would be a real coup. The other thing I want to bring up, though, you guys, is just we need more directors than we have. As long as we're basically an all-volunteer organization and this is a working board, all that has to happen is one of us has to get a cold and things start breaking down. You know what I'm saying? If Eric's filming schedule gets tight or, right now I've got 1099s to do and, all the year-end financial stuff for the coffee party as a treasurer. And so it's like we're just so thin that I can't see not expanding the board and I can't see not taking this opportunity. We can, however, fill the two positions that are vacant with no effort at all to alter the bylaws. So that's kind of two issues. And I'm going to look and see if anybody's got their hands up here. So, Cameron, is your hand old again?
hey, I'm kind of young here, but yes, that hand is old.
Well, I can't look at the agenda and look at the board at the same time. Maybe Eric's hands up. Go ahead, Eric. Eric, your hand is up.
Well, I think what we could do is we could say there's no limit to the number that we're going to ask, and just ask everybody on here to join. And if all of them say yes, then we'll just make that the number of board members we have.
It has to be odd.
I love that.
It has to be an odd number in order to get an actual consensus. Otherwise, we have a tie all the time.
Yep.
I guess
which
so.
is fine. I mean, just add one more.
The board of supervisors in Kingston County was 8.
It can be the council, however we want to do it if you want to. But the truth of it is, the bylaws are going to explain how this works anyhow, right?
So the bylaws have 9, and that we can expand it. It's just that we have to modify the bylaws to do it. It opens the door for changing the number, and the only thing the bylaws says is a deal breaker is that we cannot have fewer than 3. So the bylaws are actually set up that we can have fewer directors if we wanted to. And, I guess if we had a lot of paid staff, that might work. But in terms of what's happening now, 3 to agree from Dan. I don't know what you're agreeing with, Dan. But
I'm agreeing with fewer.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, if we make a bunch of money, we could do that. Because I think we should just hire an accountant to do my job. That's not me. So, okay, here's the question in my mind, and then y'all chime in. Do we feel these? Eric has suggested, so I'm not going to say it's a motion, but on the floor is the idea that we invite all of these people, unless someone speaks up now and says there's a reason not to invite them, and enter the inquiry if they are interested. Eric is willing to err on the side of we have to make room for more. And it's actually possible we'll be lucky to get 2. We don't know, do we? I mean, actually, we do know that there are 3 people who would say yes. Any comments on? Okay, Cameron, your hand is up.
There's a couple of things that have come up. I definitely think that there's space here if we can find one for a legal director or an accounting director. Well, we've got a treasurer, but in reference to it, to have legal on here would not be the worst idea in the world to sit on as a director just to keep us in line. That's something that I definitely was thinking about. But outside of that, I don't have any issues with anybody else that was on that actual list. Being a part of it. I was, Tiffany Espinoza. I know Bernadette. I don't know Bobby. I do know Deb, and I read a bunch about Vince Lamb and Greg Rusak thanks to Dell's suggestion. I don't know who Bart Turner is, but anybody who's been suggested here, it looks like they're all very well qualified. We just have to know what their strengths and what their weaknesses are so that at least we know how we can work with them, and I guess that's going to come through board development anyway, right?
Right. People are still going to have to be vetted.
Did somebody say something? Because I heard Jeanene and then somebody said, whoa.
I'm just watching Eric's writing, and I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to get Owensboro involved.
To get what involved?
Yes,
well, that's one of our oldest still active coffee party groups, and it's a very diverse group. They actually have a tea party person who's active in leading the group, and what's his name? I can't remember his name.
Dan's got a question.
Okay. Dan, your hand is up?
My hand is up. It is true. So this is going to sound horrible. No, it's not. on July 31st, when this discussion was first had, I look back in the minutes. It was first had on July 31st. I said, we need to do a gap analysis. We need to figure out what we need, what we have, and then fill in the gaps. That is now, that's my corporate approach to things. But I just don't, and then Dell even said the same thing, at least about the current members. Maybe we should actually find out what we have here, and then, and that would be a good start. I just don't want to see the process rushed, and I don't want to see it be arcane. I like to see it have purpose. I mean, right now, for instance, I'm a director at large, technically. I could fill one of the spots. Why do we have to go outside to fill one of the spots that we're missing when we have people right here that are at large? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And then
I agree with you.
I just don't want this to be just a pig in a poke.
Well, that was my attempt.
Numbers don't mean diddly squat.
I agree.
That's
why I tried to do my little 5 lines here was okay, if we're going to do some kind of gap analysis, from my experience as a managing director, this is what I see. And that's why I said there is no membership position. There is no public relations position. Managing director shouldn't be piled on with another responsibility. And the secretary is vacant and the SOD is vacant. I think, to me, now, if we want to do this in a group process, that's great. I don't mind. And we could even do it sort of virtually, like I could take this paragraph and stick it in the doc and everyone could comment the heck out of it. And we could probably come to something. I do want to point to that having the vacancy of the secretary is a huge breakdown. And we haven't had minutes for months, and we don't, so, it doesn't serve us and it doesn't serve our organization as a whole. We have someone who's been a secretary, and I interfaced with him because I was the elected secretary. He was the transition team secretary. He did a great job of bringing me on board. And so one thing we might consider is combining those two things. We know we have to have a secretary, and it's a huge missing, and the rest of the conversation could be a subject of gap analysis. I agree. Cameron agreed with something. I just changed the channel here and saw his hand or his three.
I agreed with Dan's statement earlier that we should have a gap analysis done specifically to our needs.
So what's your pleasure? What procedure should we follow if we were going to do that?
That's to you, Dan.
Hey, Dan. What do you recommend?
That's to me?
Yeah, you.
I don't doing it. How about doing it to whatever even minimal extent it needs to be done, or to do it correctly? Either way, but I mean.
Do you have a strategy in mind? That's
well. So there's two ways to approach it, right? One is to make it a task for someone to do it all by their lonesome, or the other is to put together, is to do it as a group, almost to workshop it. But this is where this gets ugly, and I'm sorry, but both Dell and I have made the comment. What is our organizational structure? Do we really have one in play? We talked a lot about it for 2 days in Washington, D.C. We walked out of there. We had a lot of pieces of paper stuck on the wall, but I don't know, was anything really formalized?
Well, I don't know. I had marching orders, and I went with them.
Michael put together this huge document, and it was like somebody said, well, it's too corporate, we're not going to do it. Well, but nothing was ever put in its place.
Dell has her hand up.
Okay, so
I'm thinking that we could knock out something simple here about something that we need right now. We need a secretary. I mean, I haven't worked closely with Vince on anything, really. Just kind of followed him at coffee parties. If we have somebody who's willing to step up and fill this position, we could knock that one out. And then the rest of this, I mean, we do need a gap analysis. If there's anybody else we think we can plug into a position that needs filling right now, then I say let's go after those and get them off our plate and then start thinking about the rest of this thing. If we need to have a discussion about organizational structure, we can have that discussion. But we could knock those out right now, solve some issues that we have, and move forward.
Dan agrees with you. 3 do agree.
Well, I'm all for that one. I'd like the idea of moving. I mean, Vince knows what he's doing. We've experienced his skill at this before. I don't know that he's gone through the background checks and stuff because I actually don't know, but Linda Park would know. And so I'm with you on that one, Del. I think it's brilliant, and I think we should do that. The other thing is we have 2 other yeses. You know, we have Greg and Debilyn. And so, you know, one thing we could do is that Michael's position was the SOD, the Strategy and Organizational Design group, right? They are the logical group to do gap analysis or to lead us through a gap analysis. And I like the idea that if we have 2 yeses ready to go, that we have Debilyn and Greg take that one on. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have more time. And part of my thing for bringing people on is that, you know, I can't continue to because all that happens is I do a lot of failing, you know, because no matter, if you get too thin, you can't succeed at anything. And because our fiduciary responsibility is so high, I have to err on the side of being a treasurer instead of being a managing director. And you all know from the reports I make every month that that's no small job. And so Dan has his hand up. Bill has their hand up. Dan, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I reiterate my agreement with Del, and look, the world didn't stop. I agree with Del. I thought that was nice. But did I really forget what I was going to say? All right, Del, go first.
Oh, God.
And I'll remember.
It really messed you up.
I always hate it when I do that.
You guys are funny. He deferred to you, Del.
Jeanene, I have to ask you, I mean, I think that you are holding, you're like Atlas. You've got the world on your shoulders. So I have to ask you, if you were going to shed one of these responsibilities, which would it be?
It would depend on who we could get. I mean, if someone came in with financial skills, you know.
They're both extremely important. They're both extremely important positions. I mean, but I realize that you are overburdened, and so if you wanted, I mean, if you had your druthers, what would it be?
My druthers? I don't know. I mean, I ran for secretary, and then there was a huge gap over there in the treasurer department, and it's proving to be a big, just a big job. And frankly, I have to defer to being treasurer when I have to choose, and I have to do that because we have like real live legal deadlines. And so the 1099s really have to be done by a certain time, and the tax return really had to be filed by a certain time. And since we didn't have the $1,000 to have someone else file it, I had to file it. And, you know, so it's not like this is the part of being a nonprofit that is exactly like a business. And so this is the part that is not optional. And so when I have to choose, I choose being a treasurer because that's like the law will come bite us in the ass and we will lose our nonprofit status if I do that job badly. And So in that regard, I'm all about it. If you found someone who had equal or higher skills than mine in handling this fiduciary responsibility, I could give either one of them up. But right now, one has precedence over the other because of the law. I mean, y'all may or may not need managing, seriously. But we do have to file a tax return, and we do have to file 1099, and we do have to file, blah, 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 blah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, actually that does. I mean, it's very clarifying.
Okay, I remembered.
All
right, so, and again, I mean, and I apologize for as many Google emails as I've sent, but just to make it official and put it on the record, you're right, Jeanene. This is a working board. I don't think it has to be. I think we can begin the delineation of strategy versus doers. And I guess the question becomes, do we really believe that we have to entice people with a title of director to get them to come on board and do serious work? Or can we build out the structure that at least I was familiar with, where you had a director, but then you had work group chairs, and then that work group chairs had their committees, and then they did the work, and we kind of managed it, oversaw it, and did strategy.
Hey, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm all about having work group chairs, and I'm all about filling out our organization. It would be a different world for us, wouldn't it?
Very much. And I think it will be a much better one, and one that's much more easily sustained over time than to try to pray that every 2 years you're going to have directors coming in, and my other problem is that I'm really worried. I mean, we've got this huge Viridian thing that we're about to embark on, and I would hate to have somebody come on board just for the heck of it, and then say, "Oh, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. We can't do this."
I see your point.
I agree.
All right, so this is a good transition into the next.
No, well, actually, though, I really need to hear from the group. One suggestion right now is gap analysis before we do anything. Another suggestion is that we fill our vacancies and then do gap analysis. We have more people saying yes than we have vacancies. The third option, I guess, is that we alter our bylaws and bring whatever number of people in. I don't know. So we need to I don't want to have this exact same conversation again 2 weeks from now. So where do we stand? Raise your hand, anybody.
Okay, I'll do a 1.
Del. And then Dan.
I'm advocating for filling the positions for which we have people already qualified and interested. And for the rest of it, then we can deliberate about what we need to do about gap analysis or our needs. I mean, we should do that anyway. But we know we need some positions filled now. We have people interested or qualified, and I say let's get that going.
Dan and then Cameron.
I agree, especially when it comes to the secretary, because that's the real immediate need, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's vet Vince, and if he fits, I don't know the guy from Adam, but it's fine. Let's get that position filled, but then let's do the rest of it correctly.
Cameron.
My only concern with that approach here is that we're in the middle of doing everything with that we need to with Viridian. I'm pretty sure Vince is a good guy. I don't know him personally, obviously, but that's the only reason my concern is here is that if we go to fill the board slot and he's not up to speed with everything, is his vote going to slow down any of the stuff that we have to do, inclusive of what we're about to talk about in terms of ensuring that the bylaws are fitting with the mission that we're embarking upon here. And I'll talk about my views on that in the next discussion, but it's definitely going to play a part in this. So I definitely want to hear what everybody else's thoughts about it are. Jeanene's got a one-up.
So it sounds, I got it this from what you just said, Cam, and then I got it from what Del said earlier. Should we have some kind of a preliminary, should one person, should Eric, somebody have a preliminary conversation with the three yeses and say, hey, we're about to launch into this thing with Viridian. This is how it works. This is the deal. Are you up for that?
Yeah. I think that's probably a really good idea. Yeah, it's a really good idea.
3-2-3 from Dan. Okay, I can see this now. I see what you're saying. It's kind of like we don't want someone coming in as we launch saying, I don't like this idea, because the board has to be aligned. And they have to understand it before they buy into it at this point. So, right, we have hands now up from, we have 3-2-3 from Cam, 3 from Dan, and Del, you have your hand up.
Go ahead, Del.
Or no? Del?
Hold on. One new member of the board cannot outvote the rest of us. We've already approved it. So in what way could they actually come in and change it? Are we going to change our commitment to Viridian? The rest of us?
No, that's not my concern, Del. My concern is if the point you brought up earlier, to testament to you, is that if we have to ensure that the conflict of interest wording is updated due to this, the way that this is structured, that somebody new coming on isn't going to throw a monkey wrench in that process. It'll slow a lot of things down from a fundraising perspective. But I have to also make my point this evening after this discussion is done.
I guess I don't quite understand. I mean, I don't know how.
We have to amend the bylaws. In this case, it takes a unanimous vote from everybody on the board.
What?
Right.
Am I wrong?
But I thought we were talking about this issue with Viridian.
I didn't hear what you last said. What did you say? I'm sorry. Say it again.
Well, in terms of adding someone to the board who may not be on board with what we did with Viridian, what I was saying was they can't outvote us because we've already decided this. And I thought that was the issue you were bringing up. I mean, this idea about the conflict of interest is a totally separate issue.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So because it's already been passed, there's nothing that he's going to vote on in order
to... Well,
I
mean, are we going to reverse our vote? I mean, honestly,
no.
So I don't really care what their attitude is about it. It's a done deal. We've decided.
Yeah.
They're not going to change my mind.
That was just a concern I had. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think we have to make room on the board for people who have diverse views, but this is something that I don't think is going to change in the near future. We're committed to it.
Yeah. No, then I'm fine. That was just, I was concerned from the process perspective, not from the actual action-oriented stuff and the work that I put in and everybody else has put in. I'm just more concerned with how the process of our business has to be done based upon the rules that we've had to uphold. That's all. As long as that's understood and everybody's kind of in line with that, I'm comfortable with it.
I guess I don't really care if we bring somebody onto the board who rubber stamps everything that we do. We still have a voting structure, majority rules. You know, we bring somebody on and they disagree with us. Okay, fine. I mean, we don't all agree with each other all the time on everything. So, but I mean, bringing on one new person to do something we really need to have done.
I'm not concerned about it. I'm not going to worry
about it.
Yeah. Well, you know him better than the rest of us, you know. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine.
You know, actually, I think Jeanene knows him better than I do. I mean, I didn't work with him on the transition team. I wasn't even involved in that.
Right. Dan has his hand up, but let me just insert that I worked with him for a couple months, and I was in on the last few transition team meetings as a part of my training and just, so I can certainly vouch for him as being a responsible guy. He handed this job off well to me, and I would endorse him in a heartbeat. You know, he was wonderful to work with. He was wonderful to work with. So, Dan, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to comment that when I look at the issue that's being discussed, I don't look at it as some guy who could come in here and reverse the decision. What I'm looking at as is somebody who could break cohesion, right? So I'll make it as short as possible, but I need to relate a story I related to Cameron earlier today. When I first came on board in this new job, well, my new job is 9 years old, but anyway, when I first came on board, I got a call from the CEO, and he's trying to explain to me why he's firing our director of marketing. And the reason is because the way that the company works is everybody gets in, they discuss things, they can be passionate about it during the discussion phase, everybody fights for their point of view, eventually a decision is taken. But once that decision is taken, everybody now falls in line and rolls up their sleeve and goes to work at getting it done. What this guy did is he sat in these meetings, he didn't say anything, and then after the fact, he would then write these 3- and 4-page memos and send them to everybody saying why it was a terrible decision and questioning the decision. And that breaks down team cohesion. It's not like he's going to stop and reverse the decision because the director of marketing says, hey, this is a bad decision, but it just breaks down team cohesion. And I just want to see everybody pulling in the same direction and not having 4 people pulling forward and 2 people pulling backwards. Even though the 4 people win on by majority, it's still bad for the team. That's my concern. That's all I'm saying. So if Vince is on board and he will roll up his sleeves and get on board, great, fine, bring him on board. But I got to know that before I would be comfortable bringing anybody on board.
3 to agree from me and from Dell. And I want to add to that there's nothing, at a critical juncture in your experience here, we were on a launch path. The worst thing you could do is bring in someone who didn't want to do this. And I agree with Dan for all those exact reasons. But I think that's an easy, I could have that conversation with him, or someone else could have this conversation if they thought it better. But I'm happy to, because we have 2 other people, I'm sure, are capable of being secretaries who've already said yes, who might say also yes to our strategy of mission-based capitalism. So I'm dropping everybody's hands. Any comments from anyone? Cameron.
Yeah, just based upon the vote of confidence that both you and Dell have put forward about him, I'm 1,001 times more comfortable with it. I just want to make sure that we knew that whoever we bring in is not only qualified to do the job, but at the same time is good with respecting previous votes. So I'm very happy to hear that.
More comments? Anybody have a motion? Anybody have a suggestion? I mean, what I'm hearing so far is I should go talk to Vince, see if he's game, if he's into the game that we're up to. And if he is, I can let you know, and we can initiate a vetting process. Dell.
Oh, sorry, I meant to hit 3 to agree. Yeah. Talk to him and sorry, I hit the wrong button. Anyway, talk to him and let him know what we're doing and bring him up to speed and ask him if this is something that he can support.
Yeah, Jeanene, if you need me on a call.
I mean, I think that's a genuinely responsible thing to do anyway, to inform someone. This is what you're getting into. Is it still okay with you? I mean,
yeah, Roger.
That's perfect, though. That is really perfect. Hey, this is what you're getting into. Okay, so we have two. Do we need a motion, or I feel directed to do that and to get back to you as soon as I've spoken with him.
Is there anybody who doesn't agree?
No.
Objections be heard right now.
I don't think this is. I don't think we need a motion because there's still a process of onboarding that he's going to have to go through, and that's going to include a vote in the end. So I'm not sure why we have to have a vote to vet the guy.
No, we don't.
Do we?
We don't.
Okay.
If you want to vote, great. If you don't, I feel directed. I feel like I have marching orders here. Now we have two other yes people. So
Charge.
The next step becomes some kind of gap analysis process. We can talk about that in 2 weeks. We can talk about it by email or I prefer communicating by Google Doc because then everybody can chime in and as in the middle of the night or whenever it works for you. But I don't want to let this filling the vacancies and or the decision to expand the board to take forever. I think we all need that added energy and technical expertise and vitality that the right new members would provide. And so is a Google Doc conversation about this adequate? Should we start there and see if we need to go to a video conference or something? What's your pleasure? And we're talking about the gap analysis.
So are we, just to clarify, are we talking about doing the gap analysis via a Google Doc, or are we talking about figuring out how to do the gap analysis via Google Doc?
Well, it could be either one. I mean, obviously, it's like starting a process. And if we wait for a meeting, I know we're at 6:13. I guess that's 9:13 on the East Coast. So we have like 45 minutes left or less if we could get done. I don't know that we could. I'm just asking you what's step number one for our gap analysis so that this doesn't come up 2 weeks from now without our having made any progress. The first thing came to me was a Google Doc to start the conversation. Is there another way to do this?
I like the idea of a Google Doc outlining the process and the steps involved with doing the analysis.
I concur. Other opinions?
No, I'm around it too. I'm right in there with him.
Right. So I'll try to have that up tomorrow. So are we ready to move on? Oh, I see typing. Della's typing in the doc. Okay. Are we at the agenda point where we're going to talk about Viridian partnership?
Well, development. Yes.
Okay. Well,
oh God, this again?
Right? I
was going to say,
I just figured I'd lighten the mood a little bit for you, Cam, before you got serious on us.
Thank you very much. It's appreciated. I think I might have deleted a few things here, and I don't want to do that. Hold on here. Making sure that I did. Yeah, something got deleted here, and I'm hoping I didn't do the deleting, unless it went all the way to the bottom where I had put it. No, it didn't. So something got deleted. All right. So hold on just a second, so I can make sure that this is in here. Hold on. It's going to replace. There we are. So, wow. Okay. So under development, right? There's certain areas of discussion here. Are you guys? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's certain areas that we have to be considerate of. Benefits, ethics, truths, and realities, making sure that there's transparency in what we do. And ensuring that that one doesn't really affect the other. Benefits, being able to implement a strategy that can change our world for the better, that's for sure. That we are in good standing with our mission in terms of our ethics. That we are putting out facts and truths so that we're not damaging our brand. So by ensuring people are given the facts up front, that way we're coming from an integritous position. And that our reality is we must accept that this mission is one that we fully accept and understand. In a few minutes, I'm going to bring on Michael Fitzpatrick onto this call through a three-way call on mine and to answer any questions that anybody has about Viridian. But below, there's a couple of different documents that I want you guys to go through when you have the time. And there's a little bit that I attached into this below that. There's the Coffee Party Viridian document that we work on during our meetings. And then there's the strategy doc, because we're building a strategic document, strategic plan, and then we're going to be building a business plan off of that strategic plan. So there's avenues of approach for that. But I want to give you guys kind of a little bit of a teaser here, because Viridian's coming out with something called the Helping Our Heroes Initiative. And it gives us the ability to sign up veterans and active duty military and the active duty military spouses in reference to becoming associates of Coffee Party of Viridian. But here's the great side to it. It doesn't cost them anything. In fact, they get 250 business cards for free. So the great side to this is if we start to give you the benefits here, it costs nothing for Coffee Party or veterans to sign up. Gives a positive light in what Coffee Party is doing because we're tying ourselves to helping out people who serve our country. It branches off an amazing PR campaign to energize our membership. It also allows Viridian to use both the Coffee Party initiative and vice versa, and the Helping Our Heroes initiative to bring forward the most successful movement marketing campaign in the history of the country. We are putting together 3 different movements technically, but really it's one piggybacking off of the other. We are getting money out of politics movement, which is what we stand for in Coffee Party. And we've got the Viridian movement, which is an environmentally friendly movement, but also helping out our heroes when they come back, especially if they don't have any jobs or anything. So the greatest side to this is that it gives us an ability to, and a pool of people we know, because I know a ton of veterans, and I know that people have family members who are, that we can even start going there now on top of going after the 3 areas of approach, which are nonprofits, our leaders in our chapters, and our membership and supporters. And that's all in the strategy doc. So I highly suggest you take a look at it. This also gives a good light in terms of how network marketing can be used for the power of amazing good to counter big money in politics. I think some of the discussions we had were, well, if it takes $10,000 a week for people to raise money to go and run for office, that means that those people that do this within the Coffee Party movement need to probably have $50,000 a month coming in from their work, which is completely possible because there's people who already do. There's people who make about $350,000 a month. So it's definitely possible for them to do it. And if you think about it, if somebody who runs for office doesn't actually have to raise funds from donors, the real essence of what we're trying to do is get money out of politics. Well, if the Supreme Court is not going to play ball with us, well, if we cut the donors completely out of the process so that they don't have to get lobbying money, then it actually gives their representation back into the hands of the people who want to do good work in the world because they've got money coming in and they don't have to worry about raising funds anymore to run for office. That is powerful. And being able to be in a position where we can do that, I think that we're at the right place and right time. So there are a few elements of this that we have to discuss. One, the conflict of interest ruling. That are in our bylaws, looking at this from the perspective of interested person, financial interests, and ownership or investment and interest. I want to state right here and right now that I think that when asked the question whether the directors or anybody who is working on raising funds through the fundraising process is making money, that we unequivocally answer and wholeheartedly proudly say yes. And the reason I say this is because we're doing good work in the world. I don't think in any way, shape, or form that that's a negative. I think that when we're raising funds for the coffee party, and that we have a financial interest to benefit from that, but at the same time, a lot of that money goes directly to coffee party. That's not a negative. I think that if you take a look at organizations like Susan G. Komen, those people are taking money from sales of their stuff and paying the board members $500,000 a piece, some of them. And they're utilizing a negative where they're saying, no, this money is going towards breast cancer research. Well, 21% of that money goes towards breast cancer research. It's not 80%. So the real essence of this is that this structure is already implemented. It's not one that we are being cronyist about. We can't manipulate the system. Otherwise, we don't actually get to do this in terms of being fundraising through the organization. So this being the case, I think that it goes without saying that from a leadership perspective, it makes some sense for us to become the beginning of the coffee party, Viridian movement, in terms of being those who become associates and start the fundraising side of it, because it incentivizes anybody else who we bring around to do this, that they're able to also make money doing it. I think there was a concern that by utilizing the coffee party list, that there's a bigger conflict of interest based upon the fact that we would be utilizing the list itself to gain benefit. As far as I'm concerned, I don't actually have issues passing customers to the RFP account for Coffee Party, and I don't think anybody else should have any issues with that either. But I don't want to turn around on this and say, well, we can't bring an associate. I think it would make some sense for us to be able to do that. But I'm with Jeanene on this one. I definitely think that seeking counsel makes a little bit of sense, just to make sure that we're in the right on it, just to make sure that legally we're in the right on it. But secondly, that we're doing this to ensure that we're covering all bases. But outside of that, I don't think that there's any issue, because if every single other person who sees this and we're bringing it to them and we're not, putting our names behind it, where we are associates and we are working these angles, and we say to people who are wanting to, those who volunteer to become fundraisers, and they build out these gigantic, large organizations because they're going to a lot of these nonprofits, that, well, when is it not a conflict of interest for us to be able to join in doing this as being part of the movement? I don't think that the fear of this anymore is something that I really subscribe to. I think that by owning it, it'll give us more of a leg to stand on than from shying away from it. And that's kind of where I stand currently with it. I can change how I feel about it, but I don't think I'm going to. So in reference to Article 7, conflict of interest, I definitely would like to see that amended, only because I think that it should be amended to the fact that it's not a conflict of interest if the organization itself is also benefiting from the work that we're doing, and that it's stipulated that way. Because in respect to what we're doing, we are the movement makers in this case, and we're the ones who are doing the work at the beginning. And I don't think that there's any issue for people who work in a nonprofit to have a salary of some sort. In this case, we're just going to get paid based upon the volume of the work that we do. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions before I bring Mike Fitzpatrick on based upon what I just said.
I see no hands.
I love it. I love to see that there's no hands. But if you do have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Do you all feel the same way that I do? Please do agree if you do.
Ah. I see a couple threes.
So do I. So if you don't necessarily agree with what I said, what is it that you don't agree with? Or do you not agree with what I said? If you do not agree with what I said, please hit number 2.
Cameron, I'm sorry. I fell asleep, so I don't know what you said.
Not a problem, Eric. Okay. So basically the only concern here, and just to restructure how I said it, because I'll go on a diatribe, is that the concern for conflict of interest is one that I've had to think long and hard about it. And I started thinking about this, and I said, well, when is a good time for us to take ownership of our own reality of this organization? I think that being able to turn around and say, yes, we financially benefit, and we're offering you the same opportunity, and every time that you benefit, the coffee party itself benefits the same way. That owning that element changes also the way that nonprofits will start looking at their fundraising. I think that people are always incentivized to become fundraisers when there's a financial benefit for doing so. I know the nobility of sacrifice. Well, what if that sacrifice is also financially beneficial? I think you exponentially change how you approach fundraising when you do those kinds of things. I think that's why Susan G. Komen became such a big thing, except we're doing this on an exponential logarithmic function. They just do it through retail. So movement marketing, I think, is going to take us to very, very large places. In terms of, if you can imagine $3 million a month coming in because we have 1 million supporters who are doing this work in the areas that are deregulated. Also, at the same time, we can also pressure legislatures to deregulate because I'm sick of being forced down my throat the ability to purchase. In my state, it's 49% nuclear, 25% coal, and 23% natural gas is what my electricity is made with, and only 10% renewables. Why shouldn't I have a say in the fact that I want greener energy to be supplied to me? Just because the only suppliers that are currently there are brown energy? I don't think that that's right either. So we can have a major impact and have a very good mission in terms of changing our country and our world. And if given that opportunity, I don't think that there's any negative when we have a financial incentive to support that mission, and there's a financial gain to be had for that. I know a lot of boards get paid salaries. This is just another way to do it.
So are you saying that we would be similar to what we're offering social help online? Basically, we'd all be in at a level above the coffee party, and then therefore we would all...
Oh, no. We'd all be in a level below the coffee party, and the coffee party would benefit greatly from the work that we do.
I see.
Each individual person would be coming under the coffee party RFP program as associates, because right now Viridian has a special, and this is something, I know I'm sounding like a marketer here, but this is just their truth. It's $99 to sign up as associates right now, and they only do this, I think, once a year, and it's always in January. And so it's a lot cheaper to just sign on. And if you're a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, or I think in February, you'd be able to do it for free. But it gives us the ability to really get people online. Dan, you have a question?
Not a question, just a comment. To me, this is about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So that's statement one I'd like to make. Statement two is we are, in doing this, not only bettering our environment, we're not only changing the way people think, and I know, Eric, that seems to be the theme you're big on, is changing the way people think and react and act and get to affect their surroundings, and putting them in charge over big business. And you talk about crony capitalism. Oh my God, utilities. Hello, that's huge. And then finally, we're actually giving people the opportunity to be employed. Look at Laura Simmons. What if she actually takes this and runs with it? I mean, and instead of having to hear about how she makes too much money to be on welfare in Ohio, but she's not, but she can't get by on what she's making. What if all of a sudden Laura Simmons 3 years from now is making $5,000 a month on this? I mean, I can't see the negative here. So I honestly think, Cam, you're making too much of it, but I think you're being too defensive. And I will finally state this, and then I'll shut up, and that is, we can't be defensive when we talk about this. We cannot be defensive. We got to go, what are you talking about? Look at all the good we're doing here.
Yeah. No, yeah, I analyze everything, Dan. And sometimes I get a little too deep into that well, but I always look at every angle, and especially when things come up from like a bylaw within, I tend to try and make sure that I cover every base before I end my logical conclusion. So that's kind of where this comes from. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I get that, Cam, but the fact of the matter is as a sales guy, just like I do, that you'll never know what the real objections are until you start pitching. So let's get out there and start pitching.
No, you're right. Jeanene, please.
Well, I just wanted to bring up that I was the one who looked at the bylaws and wants to seek legal opinion. I believe we're just fine, but I also know, I told you earlier, if I ask myself the question, then I ask my attorney. That's all. And I think that that's simple, and so that the other thing is, you guys, we get to be a little intimate here, and we get to, if we have concerns or whatever, we get to express them. And I'm with you, Dan. This is a no-brainer. This is a good thing. And I have total confidence that it's going to fly. I just, my job is to make sure that we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. So thanks.
No, that's exactly, yeah, I agree with you. So ultimately the question is going to be, from a legal perspective, who are we going to talk to? Jeanene, I think we had a little bit of a discussion about this earlier today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a whole conversation that will come up in our strategic plan. So we don't need to bring all that up here.
Agreed.
It's really about who has access to the database, and we are protective. It is proprietary, and so we just have to be clear about that, and that'll come out in our strategic plan conversation. So do you have this guy hanging over there waiting to get on, or?
No, it's funny that you said that. Yeah. I texted him. So I'm gonna bring him on the call now just to answer any concerns, any questions that everybody has.
How are you going to feel if we don't have questions? How are you going to feel if we don't have questions? Are you okay? Are you prepared for that?
I'm going to feel like I'm wasting his time.
Okay, good. Everybody feels
Well, that's the next question. Does anybody here want to understand any piece of this more than I guess I've tried to explain it? Because Mike's pretty well versed in how this goes, and Jeanene, you had a conversation with him. So, yeah. Would the board have a good benefit for speaking with Michael Fitzpatrick?
Does anybody have any questions of him?
Yeah, I definitely still have questions about this.
Okay. Well, let me get him on. Give me 1 second.
And what does 2 mean?
I'm sorry, I thought that meant no, I don't have questions.
Okay, no, you're probably right. I just looked at it and went, okay, I don't get it anymore.
Sorry.
Good. So by the way, you guys, while we have a little dead air, if you go to the video that Eric attached for Tiffany, one of the phrases that she uses that I really liked was mission-driven commerce, or mission-driven capitalism. I like that.
Mission-driven capitalism, I love it. All right, Michael Fitzpatrick, on this call there is Debilyn Willies, Dan Aronson, myself, Jeanene Louden, and Eric Byler. I think Eric's got a few questions, and the conversation might lead to others. So, Eric, please ask away.
Okay. Well, I somehow I had missed it until very recently. I first saw this thing about the associates are charged a fee to begin, and then if Coffee Party becomes an associate, and then members of the board of directors become associates, and then members of the board of directors succeed in bringing new customers to Viridian, then Viridian is going to pay I guess a royalty or whatever fee to both associates, the Coffee Party associate and the director associate. And I guess what you guys were just discussing before you brought Mike on was that the directors would not be allowed to use Coffee Party's database to do this. They'd have to find other ways. Is that what you guys were saying?
No, not exactly. It's just we're trying to figure out the proper legal opinion, and we will from the lawyer when Jeanene speaks with him, as to how this thing works. But well, what is the ultimate question you want to ask Michael?
Well, okay, so you guys were thinking that, okay, let's say that 5 directors decide to pay $99 to be associates, then those 5 directors go rifling through Coffee Party's database, trying to find ways to make money, and then Viridian's cool with paying kind of double, in a sense, one shot to the director and one shot to Coffee Party. Is that what happens?
No. Mike?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So Viridian basically uses networks of people and organizations instead of traditional, direct mail, advertisements, billboards, phone calls, cold marketing, so to speak. So there is if Company A used billboards and direct mail and those methods, and Company B, like Viridian, uses word of mouth, let's just say for argument's sake that they both have $100 million to spend on marketing and advertising. Viridian just allocates their $100 million in the form of a compensation plan to incentivize people, individuals, or organizations, nonprofits, churches, and so on, to help spread the education, and they'll get paid $1, $2 a month, on a customer. So instead of spending the $100 million on traditional cold marketing methods, Viridian will spend in the form of a compensation plan. So if a director got on board, underneath the Coffee Party, and brought on either other associates or customers, then yes, that person will also receive compensation from Viridian directly, and the Coffee Party will also receive compensation from Viridian directly.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, let's just say it's $1. I mean, because it's not like it diminishes, right? So if a person who got an associate and that person brings in, or let's just say a customer. So if an associate brings a customer and that customer brings a customer and that customer brings a customer, everybody receives $1. There's no diminishment over time or like over generations of this, right?
No, it's they have a compensation plan, right, which includes about 16 different ranks. So in order to get paid on the most meters, the most levels deep, and to get paid the most per meter, then you have to, your business has to look a certain way, has to follow the compensation plan. So it's not just that everybody who comes in just gets the same. It's an opportunity, and the compensation plan is something that makes a whole lot of sense. Somebody understands it, especially over time. But the company pays out 9 different ways, and so think about like the compensation plan is a lot like a dashboard on your car. When you're driving, you look through your steering wheel, and you've got your speedometer, you got your odometer, you got your gas tank, you got your temperature gauge, and so on. And so Viridian kind of looks at roughly 4 aspects of your business, and as they meet certain criteria, then you fall into a quote-unquote a rank, and when you're at these different ranks, then you get paid, on these different levels or this amount per level. So it's all part of a compensation plan. It's, a little convoluted to try to explain in a conversation like this, but it's all built into a compensation plan.
Okay, so it's all written out, so we could all read it if we wanted to understand it.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah. There's videos on it, and there's also a PDF document that breaks it all out.
Okay, and so am I correct in saying that, let's say that there's a pool of 1,000 people in the coffee party database, and 5 directors decide to sign up as associates, then those 5 directors are going to essentially be competing to be the one who is credited with having signed up the most of those 1,000 people. And each one of those 1,000 is going to essentially result in Viridian paying Coffee Party plus one of those 5 directors?
Yeah. It is a watered-down, simple version, yeah.
Okay, and I guess there's some way to know what how it happened that somebody decided to sign up, because it was from an email, or it was from a phone call, or a handshake, or whatever. There'll be some tracking. I'm sure you have some sort of tracking mechanism for that.
We don't have a tracking as to how it came to be from a handshake or a phone call, but we have, let's say for example you took 1,000 people on a list and divided it up to 200 each. And you had 5 people, and say that Eric, say that you were one of the 5, just for argument's sake, and that somebody in that list of 200, say somebody else wanted to become a customer. Well, their name would show up underneath, your business center, and then you'd be able to see that person's name if they were an associate underneath the Coffee Party's back office as well.
So there's some paperwork, right, or something involved in them switching over to you, right? And that paperwork identifies who the associate is, correct?
Yeah, either via the website, phone call, or a paper app. But it's always, they'll ask, who's the associate ID number, and then it tracks back to that.
Yeah, so that's how they know, Eric. It's through the actual sign-up process
right.
that they have to identify who's bringing them on. So that's
for example,
actually somewhat easy. And if I might butt in here, just because I heard something earlier that I thought I might be able to help with, and that is, at least as Cameron and I had discussed it earlier today, the people who are on the databases, anybody who's on a Coffee Party database is going to just be under the Coffee Party account, associate account, and not be assigned to a specific director.
Yeah, from the perspective of customers. From the perspective of customers, because if we talk to associates, we legally do not make money off of bringing in associates in the Viridian spectrum. The way that Michael Falk has set this up is that you have to perform. You have to be able to bring in customers. So basically, that's just my added part of that, Dan.
Okay, but I mean, I understand that would be sort of like a gentleman's agreement or whatever, just to make sure there isn't some sort of, unhealthy competition between directors. But just to make sure I understand it completely, if we wanted to, we could allow that sort of competition, and Viridian would be happy to give Coffee Party credit and a director credit when a new customer is brought on.
Well, if we differentiate and delineate the difference between a customer and an associate, I just want to make sure we're on the same page with the different. Are you referring to a customer?
Yeah, so Eric, we'll all be on. Anybody who comes in from the Coffee Party will be on. And I hate to use the old phraseology, so sorry if I'm using this wrong. What's called your downline. So if any of the directors that sign up as associates under Coffee Party will be under the Coffee Party downline. So then when they sign up somebody as a customer, they get paid and the Coffee Party gets paid. And then if they sign up as an associate, now your downline is now 3 people long. Now when they sign up a customer, then they get paid, the director gets paid, and Coffee Party gets paid. That's how the whole thing works. And what do you say? There were 18. Yeah. So I mean, that's Coffee Party will always win, no matter who signs them up. Mm-hmm. That's the key. And everybody in the downline gets some part of that compensation.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out if there's some potential where if Cameron and Dan both become associates, if they're going to see the Coffee Party database as a source of leads and then be competing with each other. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Let me state this equivocally, whatever that word is. The Coffee Party database is the intellectual property of the Coffee Party, and the Coffee Party owns it, and so Dan can't use it for his personal use. Cameron can't. You can't use it. Nobody can use it for their personal use. It's owned by the Coffee Party. So only if the Coffee Party decides to license it, maybe the Coffee Party decides to sell Cameron 200 names to go prospect.
Oh yeah.
But that's the Coffee Party's database. Nobody can just go into the Nation Builder and start grabbing names. No, that would be wrong. That would be illegal.
Okay. Illegal? Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I didn't think of it from that perspective. Leasing out the list, and it benefits Coffee Party at the same time. That's an interesting avenue of approach.
That money goes directly to Coffee Party.
On top of
I'm
it
here
all.
For you.
Yeah.
I'm here for you, Cam.
That's an interesting avenue of approach. That's something I'm going to have a few conversations, and that's going to rattle around in my brain for a few. Delanne dropped. I don't know why she dropped off the call, but she did. It's all right. We don't have to really go there the rest of this evening.
I think I've got it all so far, except for that I thought I heard Mike say that he would be, like, Viridian would be cool with, well, let me put it this way. Oh, God. Okay. Some of the customers who come in, and under this scenario, forget about the leads, selling leads or whatever to directors. Let's say we do an email blast or a Facebook post, and then someone ends up signing up as a result. Those ones become, those are credited to the Coffee Party, and we know that because they end up, what do? They end up,
they click through from our site to Viridian.
Okay, I see. And so that's tracked.
Right.
That's tracked how they got there.
Yeah.
That's what it is? Okay.
And we can actually track that on the back end of the Coffee Party residual fundraising program account. So we can keep a really good track record of how this is. There's reports. Well, Mike can talk a little bit more about that for sure.
I mean, ultimately what it comes down to is, the question that we always ask an organization or an individual, is what is the overarching, reason that somebody's, getting involved with something like this? I mean, because there's a million things that we could be doing. So what's the overarching reason here for doing it? And once that's established, which is what we kind of call the why, and it can be multifaceted, then kind of building out the downline. I'll use that term again since it's a common term here. You want to have probably 5 or 10 people, direct to the coffee party, who are involved with growing a network, and that's kind of how the model, at least here with Viridian, works, where it gives everybody an opportunity to participate in this transfer of wealth, this $500 billion industry, but by playing more of an educational role. So ultimately, the coffee party, if they have big goals, if they have a big why or a big reason for doing this, then making sure that the business grows accordingly, so they can actually generate the most out of it, then that would be the quote unquote the structure of how it looks. But you really want to have 5 strong lines, 5 lines that really become significant.
At minimum.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and this is just rhetorical, and I'm going to say it really fast. It's like, okay, let's say that we were at church, and we went to coffee and donuts after church to find out about this new opportunity to buy power from someone that we had an affinity with, rather than, how it had been before. And we become a customer. And so that would be a customer of the church, or in our case, the coffee party. And then over time, somebody figures out, hey, this is a great deal. The more I look into this, the more I think I could do this business. And so they're already a customer of Coffee Party, who, if they then become an associate, are they not an associate under the Coffee Party? And who is their mentor? And who is their all I'm worried about is that our strategy needs to handle people gingerly and be able to be there to support them if they make this decision. So I think our strategy needs to look at how people came, how they entered the whole conversation, and I'm just concerned. Eric, I heard your concern about the database. This is why we're planning a Coffee Party launch, so that database can come into play. And what Mike is just talking about in terms of 5 strong legs or 10 strong legs is saying that a leadership group underneath Coffee Party will actually empower people who see this as a business opportunity to have the kind of support they need to actually do a business. So, Dan talked about Laura, and we can all talk about different folks we know through this organization who could use employment and could use opportunity. So I just think we need to be careful, Mike and Cam, in our design, that rather than making this a competitive design among us, that we find a way to make sure nobody falls through the cracks and gets the support they need, and that Coffee Party, because Coffee Party is implicated in that falling through the cracks. You know what I mean? And that costs us more than
I'll give you an example. No, that's a great point. I'll give you an example. So Cam's underneath me. Underneath Cam is Lindsay. Underneath Lindsay is Chris. Underneath Chris is Richard. Underneath Richard is you guys. Right? So you guys are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 levels or layers deep in my business.
Right.
Right? And so here I am on the phone, helping you guys, because it's in my best interest, to make sure that you guys do well and hit your goals. And so, like, for example, back to the church example, there was a woman, Mary Giuliani, who over here in New Jersey, she had gone to one of those little, donut and coffee sessions after Mass because the church was involved. The church had a very specific reason for doing this. They wanted to help fund an orphanage program that they had as one of their ministries, and they wanted to raise, $10,000 or $12,000 a year, something like that. And so when Mary kind of heard on the down low, that there was an opportunity to be involved with a sustainability company, doing green energy, helping people save money, and the whole model. When she kind of found out that there was this opportunity that she could get involved with herself, for under $300, she's like, I want to do this. So she talked to the people that were involved. Now the church, quite frankly, didn't really know much about energy. They didn't really know how to answer any of the FAQs. They were never really going to become a leader, per se. They were never going to want to become a real good upline trainer. That wasn't really their intent. So some people are just great conduits to great people. Some people are great leaders, who want to continue to support and build out other leaders. So somebody was above the church, right? So somebody had signed up the church. And that person was a leader. Now the church had access to a congregation of people who were prospective customers and or other associates. So when Mary signed on as an associate, she ended up going out to her network way outside the church in the spheres that she ran in for years, and she started building her own little business. And she got about 1,500 customers, not personally, but she built a team of about 150 people that started with like her first 5 or 10, and she had about 1,500 to 1,800 customers in her total organization. Now those 1,800 customers are now still underneath the church. Now the church never groomed her, they never taught her leadership, they never showed her how to duplicate, but she happens to have signed up underneath them. Now the person that was above the church was working directly with Mary because it was in their best interest to help Mary, right? So that's how the model, like my support and the 4 or 5 people that are part of my team in the upline that you guys have, you really haven't even met yet necessarily, all have an incentive, to help people do well. So we've never come across a situation yet, even with those that have the quote unquote the most grandiose plans and thoughts and databases and so on, where we haven't been able to support fully and then some a group of people, and so that's. I'm not sure that answers your question directly. There's a couple different examples as to the support that's there. I mean, we have nobody would fall through the cracks. Let's put it that way.
Right. I think you answered it.
All right.
Okay.
Eric?
Well, I was going to say thank you, and I guess we still have a few more coffee party things to get done before the call is over.
In our last minute.
The last 30 seconds there? Yeah, for your.
Oh, no, you're right. 30 seconds. Oh, yeah. We have 10 minutes.
All right. Michael, thank you very much for being on at this late hour. It's greatly appreciated, man.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Michael.
Absolutely.
All right.
Any more questions, let me know, guys. I'm around.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'll talk to you in a bit. All right, he's off. So what other things do we want to get to? I'm assuming TPP, or I think I'm pretty much done. Does anybody else have any questions? Going once, going twice. Sold. And the next thing up for bids is, I think, Dan Aronson.
Yeah, so let me make this as quick as possible. So at the last meeting we had at the end, or actually 2 meetings before the end of the year, we agreed to take a vote and see if we wanted to, if our members wanted to support demanding transparency on the TPP. So two things happened. The first thing that happened is Debilyn put out a poll right before that decision was taken, and we got 410, I think, signatures. At least that was the last time I checked it, saying yes, we should. That was just a general poll that anybody could partake in. When we sent out the actual votes to the membership, it came back like 43-1. Okay, so obviously, if you just look at it as, a percentage, obviously overwhelmingly, they were for it. The only problem is, or the only question I have for you guys is 43 or 44 responses enough to move forward?
Yeah, I think it is.
I'll put it to you like this, Dan. It takes 50 letters or 50 phone calls to a congressman's office to change his vote, technically speaking, right? So I think 43 is about right for us.
Well, and I just want to add that I'm a member. I'm a sustaining member, and I did not see that email in my box. And so I don't know if the low response is, I have scanned for it. And I'll be the first to say that I get overwhelmed sometimes and, you get hundreds of emails and I might have missed it. But I bet I'm not the only one. And so the fact that we got 43 responses from the membership isn't bad. And it does definitely show that there was no division.
Yeah, there was only one. Yeah, there was only one dissenting vote.
Right. So what do other
okay,
people
cool.
think?
That's all. That's fine. That's all I needed to know. So the next step is I guess is, and somebody's going to have to help me with my memory. Did we decide we are going to send a single email? We were going to create, I think, an email template that people could then go and sign on to, and an easy way for them to actually send it to the White House. Is that? Am I recalling that? Sorry for my post-Christmas lethargy in my brain.
What I remember is that there was some way for people to click on our link and get to their link, right? And I thought if we got 200 people to go over from our link to their link to sign, then we'd be called sponsors. And there's already a list of organizations that are sponsors. Am I in the wrong project here?
I think, you're thinking of our relationship with Represent Us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This was just that if we did it, we were going to send a bunch of emails to the White House or letters to the White House.
Oh,
demanding transparency
I know
on
nothing
the TPP.
about that.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Instead of wasting any more time, does anybody remember off the top of their heads? Off the tops of their heads?
Well, Nation Builder doesn't exactly have that tool, but what they said is that, because offices have learned to filter out huge amounts of emails on the same subject or whatever, it's not having the same impact as it once did, and that a better idea might be to just build this tweet, like come up with a really smart tweet that we get all these people to retweet, and it has at Barack Obama or whoever we want to see that people are talking about this in the tweet, and then they pick it up when they're monitoring who's talking about them.
So we're going to do a Twitter bomb.
Yeah.
Might I suggest we utilize our new social media guy named Chris Kruger to work out the logistics of the Twitter and Facebook apps to do something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's an action item, I guess, to speak to. We have to figure out exactly how you want that structured, Dan, but talking to Chris Kruger is probably the best avenue of approach.
That's
who
cool.
wants to be on my call?
Hey.
Who wants?
Me.
Who wants?
Obviously.
Okay, cool. Then I'll set it up for you.
We could get snarky and make our actions and campaigns guy get on it, but
right now I represent him, so you could get snarky, but I'm legally bound to get snarky back, even if I don't.
You represent. Oh, there's a service I didn't know you provided, Cam.
And listen, you got the money. There's a service I can provide for anything. That's all I got to say about that right now. And since we don't have a minute guy.
You guys are keeping Eric awake. What's the deal?
Sorry.
Oh, you see, I don't believe that. I think Eric is up at this hour every single night anyway. I think he just stayed up from last night and he hasn't gone to sleep yet. He might be asleep now. But
I'm awake.
There you go.
It was just a weird week where I stayed up all night Sunday night and mailed off a film festival deadline, and then we drove all day Monday, and then I've just had a hard time sleeping at night this week, and then we've been filming all day.
You needed the rest. 5-hour energy crash. All right, then it's my fault I'm keeping you up. I'll shut up now.
All right, well, Cam, why don't you and I at least, why don't you set up the call, and then, then we can invite anybody who wants to be on it when it's set up.
Got it. Not a problem.
Yeah, we can say good. So here's my checkout. Good night, Eric.
What, Eric? What did you need to say, Eric?
All right, just so Dan's checked out. Go ahead.
Okay, my checkout is, when you get with Chris Keyser, don't limit it to Twitter. I'm sure he has some great ideas as well. So.
He does. I agree with you. All right, I'll make sure he doesn't. Go ahead, Jeanene.
Hey, well, this has been a good call, and I feel like I've got some marching orders here, and thanks everybody for staying up so late. So I'm out with that. Aloha.
Aloha. And, thank you very much for being on this call. I think we got a lot done, and hopefully Michael answered a bunch of your questions. If you have any more, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll forward it out to him. And he'll get back pretty quickly. He's looking forward to getting us moving on this stuff. So this month we really need to get everybody who wants to become an associate for Coffee Party that already is in the know with this stuff to do it, because $99 versus $2.99 is a lot cheaper, 66% off. And I sound like a marketing man right now, but it's just a really good opportunity. So.
Well, but now at the risk of being devil's advocate, are you going to tell people about the thing coming next month? I would hate to have a sign up any service personnel only to have them find out that next month it would have been free.
Oh, I'm not getting crazy about it. Yes, of course we're going to tell service personnel.
Okay.
I don't have issues with that. Okay. I'm saying about for the directorship here. People, right. I'm not talking about Jeanene's family or me or my.
So when can you walk me through signing up as an associate?
I can do it now if you want. It's not hard.
No.
Let her.
Except you have to have
I'm ready. That's all I'm
saying. First.
Yes, exactly.
But all I'm going to say is Jeanene won't be first. So
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
It's just a nice warm and fuzzy. That's all I got to say about that. All right, let's talk. If you want, Dan, we can do it tonight or tomorrow or whenever. It's fine. When do you want to do
Tomorrow's
it?
Good.
Tomorrow's good.
Yep.
All right. Then we'll work it out. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Right.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for everybody being on. Now, for some reason, I fell into the de facto board running person tonight. No. So aloha.
Aloha. Say good night, Gracie.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good night, guys.